Hi, welcome to Bookmark. I'm your host, Don Noble. Today's guest is Billie Jean Young. Young is an author, a playwright, an actress, a social activist, an attorney, and a MacArthur Fellow. Billie Jean Young is the author of the one-woman show This Little Light, in which she portrays the courageous civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer. She has performed this show all over the United States and in Ghana, Belize, China, and the Caribbean. Billie Jean Young, it is nice to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
You and I were acquainted for several years when we served on the board of directors of the Humanities Foundation, and I found that to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. It's quite an adventure sometimes.
It was, and it was one of those things that we do in this state that seemed to me worth doing. It seemed to me like we were actually not just wasting our time, but we were making some important choices. But I did get a chance then. You were kind enough one time to perform your play in part for the board, and it was wonderful. And that made me aware of not you just as a social justice figure, but also as a writer. But your life story, you've not been on this show before, your life story is amazing. I mean, it is just up from somewhere. And I want to hear it from you. You were born where, raised where?
I was born and raised in Choctaw County in Pennington, Alabama, the western side of the Black Belt on the Mississippi side. Very small town, not no real metropolises. Meridian, Mississippi was our metropolis. And so I grew up in the Black Belt, working with my mother after my father died, and just being a Black Belt girl, learning to read and to go to school at a one-room school with one teacher in 6 grades, and she's responsible for my love of reading and later writing. Yeah, she would, books were just not a staple in people's homes at that time, and Miss Kate had books, and she would go home to fix her husband's lunch, and sometimes she would let me go with her.
Oh.
Yeah. And I would sit in front of her bookcase and read while she fixed Mr. Chess's lunch. And I just go, wow, up in there. She had all kinds of books. She had the classics. She had childcraft. And I read, this is a children's encyclopedia.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And sometimes she'd let me take one home. My only task was to keep it clean and bring it back.
Right. And I've read that, where did you, these were segregated schools. They must have been. Yes. And then you went off to a high school.
Yeah, we went to high school first at Indian Springs, but freedom of choice came into being.
Indian Springs,
Indian Springs High School. And the high school in Butler, we would have to pass it if we went to Listman to the black school there in the other part of Choctaw County. So we had to go back around to Indian Springs and load another bus. We went to school at 6:30. And then take the 25-mile one-way ride to the Listman, to the high school, because they cut Indian Spring. Indian Spring was so ill-equipped. Our library there was a set of encyclopedias. And and Choctaw County Training School was a little better in Listman. So that's where I went to high school.
How, it always amazes me how artists and writers, especially people who are involved in making books, come out of places where there are almost no books.
It gives you love for them, huh?
Well, it does, I guess. They're rare and tender. But you went off to Judson then. The college at Judson took you in, and
yeah, well, there was a lot in between. But eventually, I was a teen mother, and so I got a job in one of the Great Society programs a farmer's co-op, and I went to Selma, which was like going to Mecca. From Choctaw County, I went to Selma.
Oh, the big city.
Yes,
Oh,
and
my.
worked in that program. But I learned so much there because there was so much to be done,
Yeah.
and I had business prep at Listman. I took typing and shorthand, and so to prepare my skills for anything that might come along, because we still weren't doing that then. Those jobs were not available to us in 1963, and so I went to Selma, and Selma, it was the economic response to the civil rights movement.
Uh-huh.
I went in '67 when I went to Selma, and I wanted to do everything. I know this area down here because we had farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned there there were different ways of doing things. People worked in offices. Black people working in offices. That's one of the things that the Great Society movement did for us.
Not in Choctaw County.
No, but what
Right.
it did was
Yeah.
it gave us the opportunity, even though sometimes it seemed almost like acting out, of our people being a quote executive, running a co-op, a farmers co-op of 10 counties with people, and the people who came from Washington would always ask me, where'd I go to school?
Oh.
And I would say Choctaw County Training School. They said, no, I'm in college.
Yes.
I was like, maybe I need to go to college.
So you did.
I did.
You went to Judson.
Yes.
And then, I discovered this recently, to my shame. I should be paying better attention, but I noticed that one signature that I saw of yours, it said JD, and I thought, oh my goodness. You went to Cumberland Law School.
Yes.
After Judson.
Yes.
Yeah. And you must have, those were the days, your mother was caring for your children.
Yes.
And you were up in Birmingham.
Yes. My mother was a saint.
Yes, yes.
And I was afraid to let her know. I packed up my house and sent it home to my mother, and I took my books and my black and white TV and my clothes and moved to Birmingham to law school. Only to find out later that my mom was on the phone telling everybody her daughter was in law school. Somebody had told her.
Well.
And she was really proud.
Of course. Yeah. That's not the kind of thing to keep a secret.
Yeah.
No. Along the road here, you became a poet, and your poetry spans. I think in the collection there, 5 sections of poetry, and it was interesting. My old colleague Rose Gladney wrote a piece to introduce your book, and Wade Hall also has a little piece there introducing your book. But the poems span many, many years, and I'd like to hear a couple of those.
Okay.
The volume is Fear Not the Fall, and maybe the title poem is a good place to start.
Sure.
Read us it's a short poem.
Yeah,
Read us the
it
title
is.
poem.
I wrote this poem. It's one of the later ones that I wrote. I wrote it for a Jewish friend of mine. Fear not the fall. Better to fall from the strength of the sound of one's voice, speaking truth to the people, than to spend a lifetime mired in discontent, groveling in the sty of certainty of acceptance, of muteness, of pseudo-love and easy-to-be-aroundness. Better to fall screaming, arms flailing, legs askew, flying in your intensity for the right to be, than silently, like a weakened snowbird, sentenced to the boredom of earth, too sick to sing.
That is a mildly angry poem, or encouraging poem. There is a series of poems, a series of 3, called loosely Hoeing and Whoring. And the first one can be read on television.
Yeah, he can.
and it's fun.
Okay.
The protagonist here is a child rather than a teenage woman or a grown woman.
Folks always want you to do their hoeing for them. Even when I was just a little girl, Miss Ellen wanted me to do her hoeing for her. Wasn't enough that I was her child's playmate. Wasn't enough that me and Nita played together every day in the sand, building sand castles, capturing cow ants and fencing them in and getting stung. Wasn't enough for me to be Nita's friend. Miss Ellen wanted me to be her hoe girl too. Put a hoe in my hand, yes she did. Every day when it was evening time, when the sun moved out the top of the sky and lunch was over, Miss Ellen would call Nita for her nap. And it was then she put the hoe in my hand. I started at the age of 7 doing Miss Ellen's hoeing for her. And I was too little. But I hoed anyway because it seems that's what I was supposed to do. It might have gone on forever. But one day, Miss Ellen got to feeling guilty, I reckon, and fooled around and gave me a quarter. I rushed home with my shiny new quarter, proud as I could be, and Mama allowed as to why Miss Ellen was giving me money. And I told her Miss Ellen had me hoeing for her. Mama didn't say nothing, but it was a long time before I got to see Nita again. And then she had to come see me when I came down with the whooping cough. I still don't know what happened. But the next time Miss Ellen called Nita in for her nap, she looked at me and said, "And Billie Jean, you come on inside too, 'cause your mama don't want you in the sun." Mama must have got Miss Ellen told.
Well, there are a lot of poems, and a lot of them are very powerful stuff. And you have a small reputation as a poet, but you have a big reputation as an actress playwright. The thing that most people will know about your life and career, ahead of everything else, is going to be This Little Light, the Fannie Lou Hamer play. Mm-hmm. How did you come? There are a lot of heroines in the civil rights movement, a lot of different women. You chose her, you became her. How did all that come about?
Well, I first met Miss Hamer on the day of Hurricane Camille.
Okay.
She was in Tuskegee, and we had gone up. She was speaking to farmers, and she spoke so boldly about the people who were oppressing her in Mississippi. She called out their names. I'd never heard anybody do that. Men, women, black or white, in public. Right, she just called their names. And so when she finished speaking that day, we went up to her. And although people were coming in off the coast, there were not many places to stay. We managed to get to talk to her. Uh-huh. And I asked her, why did she do this? Why did she choose to do this work? And she said, "Baby, I didn't choose. I was chosen." And as fate would have it, I went on to law school later. And she died while I was in law school, and I had criminal procedure trial. My jury had been assembled when she died. And I asked a professor about going, and he says, "Well, that's impossible." I won't tell you exactly what he said, but he said, "That's impossible. You have work to do." So I really felt that I owed Miss Hamer something. Uh-huh. And again, I moved to Mississippi when I graduated. After being in Alabama for about a year, I moved to Mississippi. And started organizing rural women. And they would invoke her name. Uh-huh. But if I was somewhere where I wasn't in a rural women's meeting, people, it was only 7 years since she had died. And people kind of like forgetting it. Forgetting who she was, except activists. Right. And I was coming from Washington in December the next year, and I started to read Sojourner magazine, which had done several articles about Miss Hamer. I started to cry. I thought I knew her. Okay. But they had they had specifics. You know, we think we know these activist people, but you really don't.
No, not unless you really do.
Yes.
Yes, right.
And the light bulb went off.
And you
You could
decided
do
that
something.
was your voice.
I decided right then that you can do something for Miss Hamer. And I had done community theater then for, many, many years. But it was always an issue whether or not people are going to get to rehearsal, whether or not they're going to come to the required number of rehearsal. And I'm like, this is me.
I can see where this is headed.
Yes.
Right. No other people are required for this.
I could do this on my own.
Right. Well, it was I want you to read a scene from it in the voice, the self of Miss Hamer. But I want to talk about it for a moment.
Sure.
You performed this one-woman play. I have read, is this true? China, Belize, Ghana, all over America?
Mm-hmm. Islands. I've been in the islands.
In the Caribbean
also
islands.
Central America. Canada.
And you get up there and
Germany.
Whoever, is that right?
Yes.
Well, and whoever's there, they don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is necessarily, but they get a pretty good taste of it before the hour is up.
Yes, they do.
That is, you were in Belize longer than other places, I seem to think. What were you doing there?
Well, when I got the fellowship, MacArthur Fellowship, Mr. MacArthur was still living, and one of the things he said to me when he called me was, go and do what you want to do.
Right.
And because you don't have reporting, just do exactly what you would like to do.
What a nice message.
Wasn't that nice?
Yeah.
And so I was invited to Belize. I was seen in Antigua by a Belizean, and she asked me if I would like to come to Belize for International Women's Day. And I went there, and I performed in the Belize city, but a woman from the village was there, a senator, and she said, "Would you come to my village?" Because I probably never would have gone back to Belize City. And I said, "Sure," and I went. And it was a wonderful communication experience. I had been worried that the people wouldn't get the dialect.
Right.
So as a result of that, I tell people now, just loosen up your ears. You can get it.
All right.
And so, and about 3 or 4 minutes into the piece, they were responding like they were in the Black Belt of Alabama.
I'm loosening up my ears. I want to hear you as Fannie Lou Hamer right here, right now.
Okay.
Let's have a bit.
Okay, great.
I think you've chosen.
I chose
one of the. Well, you have it
her
memorized,
sermon.
of course.
Yes, I have it.
All right.
From the first chapter of St. Luke, beginning at the 18th verse. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and the recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bound, and to preach the acceptable year of our Lord. Now the time have come that was Christ's purpose on earth, and we only been getting by paying our way to hell. But the time is out. While Simon of Cyrene was helping Christ to bear his cross up the hill, he said, "Must Jesus bear this cross alone and all the world go free?" He said, "No, there's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me. This consecrated cross I bear till death shall set me free, and then go home a crown to wear, for there's a crown for me." And there's no easy way out. We're just going to have to face it, folks. And if I could face this issue, you can too. You know the thing what's so pitiful about it? The men's been wanting to be the boss all these years. And now the ones what ain't hiding up under the house is hiding under the bed. But you see, that's poison. It's poison for us to know the truth and not to stand up and speak what we know is right. Christ said, "Have made of one blood all the nation for to dwell on the face of the earth." Then it's no different because of color. And brother, you can believe this or not, I've been sick of this young system here for long as I can remember. I hear some people speak of depression in the 30s. In the 20s, it was depression with me. Depression. I've been as hungry. It's a funny thing, you know, since I started to working for Christ. It's kind of like the 23rd Psalm. It said, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. See, I done walked through this young valley of the shadow of death. Because it was on the 10th of September, 1962, they shot 16 times in a house, 1 foot over the bed where my head was. But that night I wasn't there. Want you to see what God can do? Quit running around trying to dodge them. Because the good book said, he that seeketh to save his own life, you're going to lose it anyhow. So long as you're going after something, you put up the little light. And then you can be like Paul and say, I have fought the good fight, and I have kept the faith.
I'm fascinated. My mind wanders to audiences in China and Germany. And yes, yeah, sure. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. I'm imagining a room full of Germans hearing Fannie Lou. That had the MacArthur Prize having given you the opportunity to do exactly what you pleased, that is an amazing thing to choose to do. It's been a while now. You've moved back from other places. You've been living now in Alabama again for a while. Are you teaching anywhere?
I teach at Judson.
You are teaching
my
at Judson.
alma mater.
Literature, history, writing?
I teach drama. I'm
Drama.
a drama minor and an English major. I teach African American studies and African American lit.
Right. And are you writing?
I'm working on a memoir.
You are?
Yes. I hope to finish it this summer.
All right.
Yeah. I'm artist in residence at Judson. So part of my time is allowed for me to do this kind of work. Dr. Potts, God rest his soul, he left us last month, told me he wanted me to continue to be an artist.
Well, you need to keep working.
Yeah.
Your own work as well
Yes,
as
that's
teaching other people.
And so that's why I have that time.
Your mother, like a lot of our mothers, like a lot more people, we all should admit, we'd be helpless without our mothers.
Yes.
But your mother saw you through, took care of the kids, helped, and you have honored her with a volume of letters written from her to you over a long period of time. And I'm amused that in the early letters, she encloses a small amount of money for you. then,
She was known for doing that.
Yes, right. What is it you say? You said something like she sweetened each letter with a $5 bill or
two sometimes.
Or twos. I
Yes.
would love to hear. What you did was collect these letters and put them out in a volume. We only have time really for
Just one of them.
a minute.
Sure. Okay.
But I'd love to hear that you doing your mother's voice in this letter.
My mother, she wrote everybody, and she wrote exactly how she felt, and she was a wonderful person for detail.
But one of the details that your mother omits is punctuation. I
Yes.
was reading through these letters, and they begin here and they end there, and they're you describe them in the introduction as stream of consciousness, and they are. They're as if the thoughts that are going through your mother's head, this will help people listening now, the thoughts that are going through your mother's head are coming out of her hand onto the page, and then when you read them, they have to come out of off the page, into your head. Give us a 2-minute sample here.
This is February 28th, 85. Dear Billie Jean, just a few lines to let you hear from me. I'm up and doing fair. Anyway, Richard called me this past Sunday night, and he was telling me about the wonderful show what you put on in Washington. He said, Mama, it really was nice. And he also said it was a lot of people there too, those big shot people. Anyway, he said he really did enjoy it, so I hope your cold is better by now. You work on your cold. You probably need to take some cold 366. Anyway, that is what I taken. And when it got through with me, I think all my cold was gone for good. What it does, it make you spit up by the mouthful. And anyway, you can't take a big dose while you're working, but you can take a tablespoon or two, and it won't keep you going to the bathroom. But I taken near a third of a bottle full the last time I taken some, and it did a lots of good anyway. I'm fixing to get into a little business for your son, Keith Allen. Anyway, he say he need a suit. I told him not to wait until jam up time to tell you about it, 'cause you is got more to do and to think about a suit anyway. He has got some invitations ordered too anyway. He say he will try to take care of them. But listen, Billie Jean, I want you to talk to Keith for me about how he should eat. Billie, he is getting too large. He bought him a pair of jeans size 38 in the waist, and now he still ain't got nothing to wear. I told him he need a 40 in the waist. No, he say to me, I can wear a 38, bum. I told him, why all your other 38s are small in the waistline? He just don't want to give up and be large. Smile. Anyway, I put one pair of his jeans on layaway for him, and he paid the balance out. So then he see another pair he liked, so he got them. So that made him get two pair at one time. Anyway, all he got is about too small, but he's still trying to wear them. He playing baseball now, practice. I hope he'll fall off some. So I'll close now. P.S. Oh, Billie, don't tell Keith Allen I told you about all his clothes is about too small. You know how he is. Don't want to own to me that they too small. And I'm looking at him every day in those little tight jeans. Smile. Now how you do?
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, work on your memoir, get it done, and when you finish it, I promise you that I will read it.
Thank you so much.
This has been a pleasure, Billie Jean. Thank you.
Thank you.